Welcome to Life in Motion podcast, where we talk about different life issues through our perspective.
We started this podcast because life be lifing whether you're ready for it or not. And we thought it would be a good idea to just join forces and try and navigate some of those issues. So it's been a minute since we filmed Nisha.
It's been a minute.
And we used to be a trio, but now there's two of us because Kate had to go. We are still on season two. We're still on
Mm-hmm.
season two. And in season two, we dropped an episode called Navigating Romantic Relationships. The audio hasn't been aired yet, but the YouTube version of it is out. But as we're filming this, the audio is in process. So by the time this audio and video comes out, the other audio should be out by then.
Yeah,
Today's
yeah.
episode, we're talking about navigating parental relationships, but from the perspective of us being adults. I feel like when we're children, it's very clear we don't know anything, we're still learning, so we need a lot of guidance for our parents. But from the perspective where now we're older and we're sort of living our lives in different ways as adults now
Mm-hmm.
and having to navigate our relationships with our parents. So the first question under this is all about boundaries. Ooh, the golden
Setting
word.
boundaries.
Do you think setting boundaries with a parent is okay? Why
Whew.
and why not? If you think it's okay, we want you to explain. And if it's not okay, explain that too, girl. So
Mm-hmm.
do you want to go first?
Boy, and I feel like it's fine. I think as you grow and as you become an adult, that you have to set the boundaries because parents will always think of you as their child. And I know there are some parents who are good with letting go and letting their children develop their own personality and develop their own interests, and they're fine with letting them kind of fly out of the nest, so to speak. But sometimes I know for me personally, I had to set boundaries, and it used to be like, I know this is what you don't want, but this is what I'm gonna do. And like you just have to be okay with it. I remember when I turned 18, and when you turn 18, you feel like nobody could say nothing to me now because I grown. I have grown. I waited for this day, and the day is here, and that's it. And I used to like go out with my friends because I've like my friends, my closest friends here in the Bahamas, they are like 40 and like 41 and like 37 and so they were like driving and just living their lives
Yeah.
and so I would be like, okay, well, I gotta hang out, and yeah, and it would be sometimes it would be an issue, and I'd be like, I'm going, I'm going, and I'm going.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, just setting certain boundaries and still valuing the advice, still valuing what they have to say, and taking it into account as you make decisions. But at the end of the day, making sure that they know that the decision is still yours at the end of the day. Like I still have to make this decision for
I feel
myself.
like boundaries for even as an individual, take the dynamic of parent or child out of it. Having boundaries in general is such an important thing. So yeah, I think having boundaries as a parent is important, and having boundaries as a child is important. And this is how I would sort of break it down. I feel like because now we're adults, I see a lot of my
Mm-hmm.
friends with children, and I get to look in and see how things are. I think setting boundaries in terms of like just having time for yourself as a parent, especially now that we're grown. Like our parents have sacrificed a lot of time for us and things.
Mm-hmm.
So now, like now that we're grown, it's like sometimes I tell my mom, just go be selfish. Buy yourself that handbag. You do so much for us, and you've done so much for us.
Yeah.
It's okay to now look after yourself and sometimes say no to us. And it's also the other way around. Like it's okay sometimes to put boundaries in place and be like, I can't do this right now for you, or I can't
Yeah.
be here for you in this way right now as a child, or certain things I have to learn how to keep to myself as well. Like having boundaries on both sides of the relationship is very important. And if there's anything life has taught me as well, I think it's taught me to extend a lot of grace to parents because as we were talking about earlier, being
Mm-hmm.
a parent cannot be easy. Being a parent must be like so hard. And I feel like when I was younger anyway, I didn't get it. But now I'm like, whoa, it's hard, and they're also navigating through it just like we are through life right now. And what
Yeah.
right now, if we look like at the future, we're gonna be parents one day, and even just the thought of it, whoa, I am shaking in my boots. you know so having to extend a lot of grace to them. And I feel like when it comes to boundaries, it's okay to have boundaries. As an individual, you should have boundaries anyway,
Yeah,
and on both
absolutely.
sides of the relationship should have boundaries. I want my mom to have boundaries, and my parents to have boundaries in a way where they're looking after themselves and not giving too much, because that's depleting. And I want to have
Mm-hmm.
boundaries as well, that sort of lets our relationship go in harmony and not too chaotic and things. Yeah. You don't want to give too much of your time. Sometimes you want to have a good
Yeah.
sort of balance. And that's what boundaries does. So that's my take on it.
Yeah, like Trevor Noah talks about this thing, and I know it's in these questions, but Trevor Noah talks about this thing called the black tax. I don't know if you've ever read his book Born a Crime.
Girl,
Mm-hmm.
I'm gone in. I know what the black tax is, girl.
Oh,
I
okay.
know. I know.
Yeah, he talks about the black tax and how a lot of parents, because they've raised you and they've sacrificed a lot. And I know that I've seen my parents sacrifice a lot. When you're grown, you owe them something. Like you owe them your life. It's almost like I carried you for 9 months and now I raised you for 18 and now I want the rest of your life. And it can become kind of taxing. It can, and how would someone be able to navigate that? How do you not give so much of yourself when you know how much your parents have given of themselves for you? That could be a really difficult and tricky space to navigate.
It is. It really is. And I think in some cultures, it's like a cultural thing as well. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
that's your parent. When they speak, that's final. If they have their hand on your neck and you're choking, girl, that's final. Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
it can be a cultural thing. Navigating that is not easy. It's not easy, Nisha. It's like the most difficult thing, but it all
In which
comes
way?
is the most difficult thing, because I feel like if you have a difficult parent who
Yeah.
doesn't take no for an answer, and it's like, I want your blood, and that's the end of it,
Mm-hmm.
it's toxic. And anything toxic is difficult to it's really difficult to navigate. I think it will always fall back to do the best you can. If you can't,
Yeah.
do what you can, but don't like give blood and bones in the process. Do it
Yeah.
in a way where you're also looking after yourself. And if you feel like it's something you can't do, you can't do. Set the boundary. And sometimes that may look like, having to distance
Selfish.
yourself. Yeah, it will
Yeah.
look selfish, or having to even distance yourself, and like abomination. That should never happen. Like distance yourself from, a parent.
Mm-hmm.
No, in my culture, they'll tell you, Debbie, that's not right. Like Jaimaninka, which is like leave it alone, let it be as it
Yeah.
is. Whatever you do, that's your parent. And it's true, that is your parent. But you don't have to give up your blood and your bones in the
Same
process.
here though.
Deplete to yourself where, yeah, I'm sure it's the same in your culture as
Yeah,
well.
similar in some ways in terms of like that's your parent. And it's more than just parents, like that's family. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that's family. You can't turn your back on family no matter what they do, no matter how they act, no matter whether or not the situation is toxic, it's family. You
I feel
can't
like,
turn your back
yeah,
on family.
you can't. I agree to an extent, but
Yeah.
I feel like if it's getting to the point where I have nothing to give and it's depleting me to a point where I'm like running dry, then come on. These are why we have some of these difficult conversations and say no
Yeah.
more. Like we have to do it in a healthy way, because you're my family and I care about you and I want to be able to maybe be there for you. But if it's literally costing me my life, then what am I doing?
Then what are you doing? And they would be the ones to cry at your funeral.
Yeah.
They'll be the ones that are like, oh, why didn't she say no? Oh, why didn't she slow down? because there was a pressure that didn't make me feel like I could slow down. I was telling someone like, because I struggled a lot. I think it was 20, COVID happened in 2019, 2020, I came home. Like between 2020 to like 2022-ish, I was really struggling a lot with like my mental health. And you'd have people like, oh, we're praying for you. Oh, read this and read that. And it's good. It honestly, I appreciate the prayers. I believe prayers are powerful. Don't stop praying, right? I appreciate it. I appreciate the books and whatever. Read this and read this and read that. Okay, thanks. I appreciate it in some ways. But at the end of the day, the struggle is mine.
Mm-hmm.
And at the
You're
end
the
of the
one
day,
feeling it.
you're the one feeling it. And I have to decide on, how I'm going to approach each day and try to get better and try to feel better. I have to deal with it. And so nobody could tell me in those moments what I can and can't handle, what I do have the capacity to do and what I don't have the capacity for. And people would still try to put certain things on you to make you feel like you have to do this, you need to do this, you need to show up here, you need to do this. And it's like, no, I really cannot. A lot of my energy right now is going into keeping sane. And that's a lot of energy. I don't have, it looks like I have the energy, because I'm not bleeding, I'm not sitting up in a hospital, but really I don't. And people mean well when they want to be there, but all they could do is be there in the best way that they know how. But at the end of the day, the struggle and the responsibility to move in a
Still
different
falls on
direction is,
you.
yeah, it's still
Falls
my
on you.
responsibility.
And yeah, it also emphasizes like sometimes actually being there for having been able to be strong for your family members, you have to be selfish because you cannot pour from an empty cup.
Yeah.
I need to strengthen myself so that when you really need me, I can give you me. I can be there for you. But if I'm depleted to the point where I can't even, look after myself, I feel like I'm running dry. I'm literally dying. How am I supposed to be there for you when you really and truly need me? So sometimes even boundaries, self-care, all of that is so much more even beyond just you and it being selfish. Like, how? I can't. If I can't, then I can't help you.
Yeah.
So I have to be able to in order to be able to pour back into you. So it's very important, and it's sad, and I feel like these are some of the conversations a lot of people need to have. They're difficult, they're uncomfortable, they're awkward, but sometimes you need to sit through those difficult, uncomfortable, and awkward conversations. Look at the statistics for suicide. You think it's a
Exactly.
joke? Depression is real on
Yeah.
so many levels. And how sad is it that sometimes it's driven by the people you love the most? And these are real life things that really happen that result
Yeah.
in people losing their lives. It's important, it's a big deal. So, and it goes both sides, if it's coming from a child to a parent to a child, the black tax, both things are possible and both things are difficult. And you just have to get to a point where you say no is no. Like, no means no, I can't. I cannot do it. I have to look after myself first. You just
Exactly.
have to come to that point. And I feel like sometimes people think, oh, but that, how could you do that? How's that? Listen, doing the right thing, people always say it like it's an easy thing. The right thing to do sometimes is the most difficult thing to do.
Absolutely.
You just have to stick to your guns and look after yourself. And as long as you feel peaceful in your heart and you're just doing something that's to protect you, that's all. Sleep with no guilt whatsoever. That's what I think.
And I agree 110%. I agree. Yeah.
The next question is, have you ever had to set boundaries with a parent? I think from the way we've both spoken, I know where this is going.
I think the answer is yes. I mean,
Yeah,
and
same.
yeah, because we touched on it a little bit in the first answer. The answer is
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
I,
of
I've
course.
had to set boundaries with myself to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
To be
Yeah.
disciplined is not easy. Do you know my biggest boundary to myself now is I do not hit snooze. Because if I hit snooze, That's game over. I don't hit snooze. So the boundaries, in fact, they start with me, then they progress
Yes.
to the people around me. So if I'm setting them with my own self, honey, best believe I'm setting them with everyone around me too.
Oh yeah, for
In
sure.
your experience, when you set that boundary, did your parent handle it well?
Not always. Not in the beginning. And even now I still have to set certain boundaries. And it's not always handled well. Cause it's like, why can't you do it? And I always tell people, if I have room in my calendar, that doesn't mean that I'm available. So just
Yes,
because there's space in my calendar, that does not mean that I'm free. Like for me, doing nothing is doing something.
yes.
Resting is doing something. And I don't,
Preach,
and that's just how
Nisha.
I feel.
Preach,
And so sometimes it'll
preach.
be like, well, you don't have nothing to do. No, I'm
Mm,
doing something. And if I'm constantly going, constantly doing, then when will I ever have time to just rest and be and not do anything? I'm like at a place in my life where I want to practice slow a little bit. Like I want to practice moving with a little bit more ease, moving a little bit more, like taking the pace down in my life just a little bit. And I can't do it if I'm always doing something. So sometimes somebody's gonna have to say no. And if I'm always like, running here, running there, running here, running there for everybody else, then Nisha is being neglected, and that doesn't make sense. So yeah, definitely there have been times when it's not been taken well, but I'm just like, well, I mean, do you want to attend my funeral or do you want me to rest? What do you want? What do you want? Choose.
yeah, it sounds extreme, but hey ho. Yeah, that's how it
Mm,
is. That's how
yeah,
it is. I agree. I feel like, yeah, we should. It's good to prioritize rest sometimes, you know? It's
for
good
sure.
to, and yeah, of course, boundaries won't always go. It's a change. It's a huge change being introduced. It's uncomfortable. It comes with, I'm getting very comfortable. I have learned to get very, very comfortable with things being uneasy, things being awkward. In fact, I'm resting there very well. I'm
Yeah.
accepting it. So, so be it.
Mm-hmm.
So be it. Because these things have to happen in order for growth to happen. Change ain't easy. So be it.
It's
It's
not.
not, it doesn't go down even well with friends sometimes. And
Yeah.
good thing I've accepted and I can relax right here. It
Yeah.
happens. Do you think it's something you have to announce to your parent or you simply implement? This is a very good
That's an
question.
interesting question. Like I didn't write it. I'm like, oh, that's an interesting question.
I
I
feel
don't
like,
go ahead.
okay, so me in the past, you know how people talk about ghosting
Oh
or
yeah.
like just hitting block? That has in the past. I'm trying. I'm doing better. That has been
Mm-hmm.
my toxic trait. Like I just implement,
Yeah, really.
implement. Hey, there's no
And
democracy
if you
here.
didn't get the memo, then that's on you.
I just implement, and I'm really learning, especially to the relationships that I value, the
Mm-hmm.
ones that I'm like so dear to my heart.
Yeah.
That's not to say the ones that I was coward in when they were. I just didn't have. I just can't. Like I get overwhelmed. I'm like, go away. But now I'm like, I like to communicate now. I like to find a way to say it. If I say it once and twice and don't hear me, what's coming next? That was up to you. I tried.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But I don't just implement now. I have a conversation. I'll say, this and this and this. So this and this and this is how I'm handling it moving forward. However, m- if it's a boundary and I've made up my mind, just because I'm telling you doesn't mean I'm asking for opinion and advice. It,
Facts.
it's done. What's done is done.
Yeah.
I'm just giving you the respect for you to know this what's coming in a
Mm-hmm.
loving, kind way. But yeah, yeah, that's my
Yeah.
take. That's what I do now. But I feel like with some people, though, there's always one. There's always somebody that you have to implement because
Yes.
they can't take no for no, and you just have to say no, because I'm not even gonna try and have that conversation with you because some people are really committed. to
Mm-hmm.
misunderstanding you, or they have an idea in their head that just can't, it won't flinch. So listen, I'm implementing. So I feel like
Yeah.
it comes with that comes with discernment. You need to know how to discern and sort of approach these things.
Yeah.
So that's what I think on that one. That's what I would do on that
Yeah.
one.
Because I mean, every situation isn't the same. I
Hmm.
think similar to you, if it's a relationship that I value, and I feel like the people are close to me, then I will communicate that. And I'm not the best communicator. You know what I learned about me? And I don't know if this makes me toxic. I started online dating, right? And I'm like, Nisha, you might be the problem. You might be the
Why?
one who's toxic because I ghost everybody. I know sometimes they wake up and they're like, this girl unmatched with me because I would just be like, you know what, I'm done. And it's not even, sometimes it's not even a reason why. It's just like, I'm over it. I'm, I'm over it.
Oh, that's my toxic trait too,
Oh
girl.
my gosh. Like, I need to do better. But yeah, but
I
I think,
I think we're too comfortable in that
yeah,
space. When you've been single for a while, you get too comfortable. And
yes.
for me, just any tug and pull, anything that doesn't feel like it's in alignment, I'm quite happy to leave alone. And I don't
Mm-hmm.
care how much we've spoken, I'll just stop out of nowhere.
Yes. Me too. What I'm like, oh my God.
Girl, we
It's
toxic.
the problem
But
is me. But yeah, no, but I'm trying to learn to communicate better. And if I feel like it's a boundary that's going to be very disruptive in the ebb and flow of our relationship, then I'll discuss it. But if it's a boundary that's like small, like for example, I don't normally take calls after like 9:30, right? Because one, I really tried to sleep. And then we just started this like 9:30 prayer thing at church. And so it's 9:30, 10:30 on Zoom. And by then I'm like done. I'm over the day, I am done. But even before that, it's like 9:30 is my cutoff. My phone goes on sleep mode. And you know, if your phone is on sleep mode, then they won't send you like your calls through and your messages through and stuff like that. So my phone is on sleep. And in the and I didn't announce it. Like I didn't tell my friends, like, hey, if you message me after 9:30, just FYI, my phone is on sleep, so I won't get the messages, blah, 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 blah. Like I didn't announce it. And sometimes like other friends would be like, I messaged you and you didn't message me back. Or I called you and you didn't call me back, blah, blah. So I'd have to say, oh yeah, I just, put my phone on sleep mode because 9:30 I'm really trying to get into bed. So it depends on the boundaries. Somebody may announce if it's clearly disruptive,
yeah.
but others are just
Okay,
mhm.
let's talk about codependency
Yeah.
and parent-child relationships. This is something I feel like it's it kind of happens very naturally. We've both done psychology, so I guess we have an idea of what codependency is. And again, it can be both ways. Both the child and the parent can be codependent on
Yes.
each other. You can even suffer from codependency with siblings. You can with friends. It
Mm-hmm.
happens. In romantic relationships, it happens. How would you navigate codependency in parent? I feel like
Uh-huh.
there's levels to it. I feel like codependency is like a spectrum. It can go
Mm-hmm.
from, little bits to full blown, like strong codependency. So
Yeah.
what's your take on it?
I mean, and then like I just want to kind of differentiate the difference between someone who's truly dependent on another individual, like for their well-being,
Mm-hmm.
and someone who's quite capable and able of doing things for themselves that they probably should be doing for themselves, but they're entirely dependent on the other person, right? So
Mm-hmm.
like sometimes like there would be parents who need like who I'm trying to figure out the best way to put it. So like sometimes there may be a parent who feels like is the child responsibility to do put certain things for them all the time. And that could be a level of codependency. And then sometimes parents enable codependency in their children, and you have children that are codependent on their parents. It's such a difficult thing to navigate. And I think it's difficult because clearly the child loves the parent, and clearly the parent loves the child. And if you're in a relationship with people, whether it's a parent-child relationship, a friend, a romantic relationship, if you're in relationship with people, you're going to need them. And that's just the fact. Like, you're going to need people, you're going to need to rely on people. And so trying to figure out where is the line between, okay, you really need me, or you leaning on me so much and I've become a crutch for you. And I've started enabling you, not doing the things that you need to do for yourself. So I guess maybe that's what it's about. It's about enablement. Am I
Hmm.
enabling this person in ways that are causing them, that's dysfunctional, and not promoting that dysfunction in their life? I think that may be the difference between relative real need and enablement and certain behaviors that just doesn't contribute to their well-being.
Okay, so I'm gonna read out the I think Nisha, you've
Definition.
you've literally hit everything spot on. But for people to just to get a clear understanding of what the
Yeah.
definition of codependency is. So codependency is a dysfunctional relationship dynamic where one person assumes the role of the giver, sacrificing their own needs and well-being for the sake of the other, the taker.
Mm.
And I feel like there's also an aspect of it where you feel like if you if they're not happy, you're not happy.
Yeah.
So
Or feeling like you're responsible for their
their happiness, yes.
happiness. Yeah.
It's quite a complicated thing. And like I said, it comes like a spectrum. You can have codependency tendencies sometimes,
Hmm.
but then there's relationships where you're full-blown codependent. I feel like the best way to handle this is to get psychological help. Go to therapy.
Absolutely.
If you have a parent-child relationship dynamic like this, and it's not the fault of anyone,
Yeah.
it's quite a natural thing that happens between human beings, human relationships. But if you feel like, you need help for it, then it's best to go to therapy for it. That's what I'd say. But yeah, I feel like there's been on and off times in my life where I felt like this as well, and I had to really make conscious effort towards it to work on it
Yeah.
between my parent and I. So yeah, that's it for that question. And we're moving on to the final part of this episode, which is how to create healthy adult relationships with your parents. What are some of the ways an adult child can have a healthy relationship with their parents? I
Mm.
I think we've hit the nail on the head with boundaries. The best way
Absolutely.
you can have healthy relationships with anybody,
Hmm.
your friends, your partner, your mom, your dad, anyone, is to have boundaries. And this also
Yeah.
applies to, I feel like when we talk about parent-child relationships, there's so many different parent-child relationship dynamics, like family backgrounds, adopted family backgrounds,
Hmm.
biological single parent homes, all of that. Boundaries will apply to every single one. Boundaries. I feel like
Absolutely.
that's one of the good ways to navigate.
Yeah. And like recognizing like your parent is their own person
Hmm.
and you are your own person. And this probably apply, not probably, it does apply to every relationship, but they're their own person, and appreciating their personhood, appreciating that they have their own personalities, their own ways of doing things, their own ways of believing. As I don't know if this is a general thing that happens, but something happens when you become an adult where you almost feel like you are the parent, and you almost feel like, okay, now
There's a shift in the air.
yeah, where you almost feel like, okay, well, now I don't know, I don't even know how to describe it. Not so maybe it's not so much the parent, but there's just like something different that happens in the relationship where it's like, um, now you feel like, okay, well, you could do this different and you could do that better, or you could do this different. But you, both you and your parent are different people completely, different generations, different ways of understanding the world, different ways of doing things, different personality, and appreciating that difference and being okay with how that difference shows up in the relationship. I think that's something I'm learning with me and my mom. We're different people. That's okay. We see the world differently and we can appreciate each other's differences and
And
it'll
that
be fine.
I feel like that's just the beauty of human relationships. We're all so
Yeah.
different, but you can appreciate and be like, I love you regardless. Like, we're different. And so two
Yeah.
things can exist and be true at the same time. And
Yeah.
I feel like what you were talking about, where like when you're older, you almost feel like the parent. I think you hit the nail on the
Is
head by
that,
saying
yeah.
like it's a generational thing. Because I feel like as we're getting older, like look at the time we're living in now and the time our parents lived in,
Mm-hmm.
when they were our age. Things are so different. Technology, everything's so different. And we're active in those times, whereas they were in the other sort
Yeah.
of times in the past. So, in a way, as well, they're learning through our lens now because we're the ones
Yeah.
bringing all the new hip terms at home, showing them the new iPad,
Mm-hmm.
putting them on social media, trying to get them on TikTok or whatever. So, I guess it gets to a point where you're like, okay, now I'm bringing the info. I'm
Yeah.
navigating. I'm like steering the wheel in this relationship. So I guess it's also a very, very much a generational thing. Another thing I would say is like just extend a lot of grace. I feel like when we're young, we almost worship, we put our parents on a pedestal. And if there's anything that growing up has taught me, is pedestals expectations. It's actually really damaging. You can't put them on a pedestal like that. They're also human. We're all
Mm-hmm.
a work in progress. We're all learning as we go. So,
Mm-hmm.
first of all, kick that pedestal to the bin. Let your parents navigate and have grace towards them because it can be really hard being a parent. And also, biologically, people go through all these bodily changes.
Mm-hmm.
Menopause. I've been reading a lot about menopause. I feel like we should cover an episode on menopause and how much people go through. Jesus Christ, when I go through period pain and PMS once a month, I'm like the Hulk. You touch me and I'm ready to go big and green, raging. And I'm reading all these things, all the biological like factors, effects of menopause, and I'm like,
Mm.
I see my mom through a whole different lens now. Like now I'm very more patient because I'm like, girl, you have to deal with that. That's
Mm.
hard,
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like extending a lot of grace because even throughout your life, throughout different phases of your life, as your body changes, different things that comes with, it must be
Yeah.
very difficult. So extend a lot of grace to your parents.
Absolutely.
Um,
And
and
they were like babies raising babies
ex-
themselves. They were
exactly,
young, trying to figure out the world, trying to navigate the world. My mom had me when she was 20. But she's still like, at 20, you're still figuring it out. You're still figuring out yourself out. You're still figuring life out and still really just trying to make it. So, yeah, extend grace, like you said.
yeah, you have to. The last question for this episode is there ever a point when it's okay for an adult child to disconnect from their parents? Woo wee, sweet baby Jesus.
This is the
Now,
controversial question.
yeah, as usual, I'm gonna try and be as neutral as possible. I'm trying not to step on anybody's toes, but if I do, I'm sorry. This thing, I would say it's okay even to disconnect, not just parent-child relate. Sometimes disconnecting is good. Disconnect from your social media if you need to. Disconnect from your friends if you need to. Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
some things need to break, fall apart in order to be rebuilt. Can I get an amen, Nisha? Because that was a lot.
Amen.
Yes, sometimes things need to
Amen.
fall apart, disconnect in order for it to build. And I feel like in times when my relationship with my parents have had a huge turnaround,
Mm-hmm.
it's when everything is fallen to absolute shambles and we've had space.
Yeah.
Come back and everybody's like, hey, now we've all gone through, our flaws, we've all gone through our issues. We're here to ready to do it bigger and better and even make it last longer, you know? So I feel like
Yeah.
sometimes I think it's okay sometimes to disconnect. It doesn't mean you're putting your whole parents in the bin and say, "Oh, never
Right.
again." No, but sometimes it's good to good to disconnect. It doesn't mean you're never gonna talk to your parent again or like that's the end of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I
Yeah.
think.
Sometimes it's just best for the sake of you, and it's best for the sake of the parent, and the sake of saving whatever is left of the relationship for the parent and the child to kind of let's almost like we're gonna go in our corner just for a while, maybe a day, maybe a week, maybe a month, maybe a year. I don't know. But it's sometimes you just need to go in a corner by ourselves in order to really reevaluate where we are personally, where the relationship is and what's happening. Me and my mom's relationship was the best when I was not living with her.
Agreed. I feel like sometimes we all need space, and I think it's a natural thing. It's a
Yeah.
human thing. Like solitude is a good thing. You get to navigate your brain process. You start thinking, hey, you might even turn to Einstein. In fact, better than Einstein. You come up with all sorts of different
Yes.
ideas. Solitude breeds all sorts of different things, and
Yeah.
it's good. It's self-care. Solitude is essential to your self-care.
Yeah.
So yeah, sometimes disconnecting is good. And like I said, not even just with parent relationships. It applies everywhere.
Yeah. And if all two people are doing the work and you come back together having done the work, it's easier to navigate. And even if only one person is doing the work, you still come back to the relationship with better tools and you're better able to navigate the situation and, whatever the situation requires in that moment, you're able to give that situation that thing. So, yeah, I think disconnection can be a beautiful thing. And I mean, and
Hmm.
realistically speaking, like there are people that have had to completely cut off ties, like have had to completely sever and cut off ties. And if that's necessary, then that's necessary too.
Absolutely. Especially when you think of like everyone has different experiences. Some have
Yeah.
like, abuse, all sort of different things. Like do what you need to do.
Yeah.
Do what you need to do.
Yeah.
But that's not saying put the whole parent in the bin. Please, we
No.
beg you, don't go and do that. All right. I think that's it for this episode. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we shall see you in the next episode.
Bye.